Hi everyone, this is Yana Smakula and thank you for stopping by. This video is a part of a 7th annual Caring Hearts card drive. The purpose of this card drive is to collect handmade holiday cards for the elderly that live in nursing homes around the world. Since 2010, card makers have been bringing joy to many nursing homes throughout the US, Canada, and Australia, and this year we are branching out to the UK. And what better way to share our love of card making than to bring joy to others? We hope you'll join us in supporting this card drive. Details of the card drive can be found at Vera Yates' blog and Jennifer Maguire's blog, and I'll have links to both of them in my video description. I created several easy to make and easy to mass produce cards to share here. When I'm making multiples of one card design, I try to keep the design simple and easy to replicate, but I also try to make sure my finished projects are all slightly different and unique. I'm going to be stamping a holiday pattern using several Christmas tree stamp sets from Simon Says Stamp. I'll be pulling images from various sets, some are old, some are new, and I will be mixing and matching them to create one colorful Christmas tree pattern for my projects. Because I will be stamping multiples, I'm using my Mini Misty Stamp Positioner. Now don't feel like you have to have this tool and like you have to use this tool. You can stamp multiples using a clear block, and I've done this many times in the past. This tool or a similar tool, similar stamp positioner, simply makes it easier to stamp multiple card fronts, and it also speeds things up a bit. That you can by all means stamp a pattern like this using a clear block. I did some prep work beforehand. I test stamped my idea, my pattern onto a piece of printer paper. I wanted to see if the stamps that I had selected would go well together and if the pattern would make sense when stamped, and I also wanted to test a few color combinations. I pre-cut several panels of white paper. This is Neenah Solar White, and I cut my panels to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, so perfect for A2 card fronts. I'm starting by stamping a large solid Christmas tree that looks like a triangle. This image comes from the Gift of Love stamp set. It's from one of Simon's card kits from 2016, I think. One of the probably like start of the year kits, or this might be from the December 2015 card kit. I'm not entirely sure. So I'm stamping this image using Simon's Green Apple ink. And just to get this color a bit more saturated and the image a bit more smooth, I'm going to ink it up again and double stamp this. And I'm stamping this first triangle tree on all of my pre-cut panels without removing the stamp from my Misty. After I do the second impression on all of these, you can instantly see how much better the stamped image looks. I'm going to remove that first stamp and position the second image, the second tree. This one comes from the new Color Me Trees stamp set from Believe collection, Believe in the Season release from Simon. And I'm double stamping this image using Simon's Intense Black ink. Although you could use regular black dye ink, it doesn't have to be this particular Intense Black. I just grabbed this one because I had it out on my desk. Now I will be blending ink over the outline trees, so I'm making sure to use a fast drying ink, so a dye ink. I would not use a pigment ink, and I would not recommend using a pigment ink as it might smudge when you go to do the ink blending later. I'm now switching to the third tree design, and this one is from yet another stamp set from Simon Says Stamp. It's from Christmas Graphic. It's also an older stamp set from last year, I think. And the fourth tree design that I have selected for this card is this funky looking one that is made out of 3 little triangles. It comes from the same set as the first tree, so from the Gifts of Love, and I'm using Willow ink color to stamp this one, and I'm also double stamping this image on all of my panels. My first row is complete, and I'm going to repeat my stamping in the second row. I'm using the exact same images, but I'm stamping them in a different order and using one additional color of ink. So overall, my card will have 3 shades of green. I have Green Apple, Willow, and Evergreen. And I'll also have 2 kinds of outline trees that I will blend 2 more colors of ink over. So the patterns will end up being multicolored, but at the same time I will have multiple shades of one color, so they won't look too busy. When stamping my solid Christmas trees, I'm using my 3 green ink colors, and I'm making sure to spread the colors on the card. In other words, I'm avoiding having trees stamped, say, in green apple, go in a strict vertical line. I'm spacing them out on my panels so they sort of form a visual triangle. I'm also going to stamp the third row of trees with this same design, and the third row ended up being cut off just a teeny tiny bit. But these trees did not look much different from the trees in the other two rows. After I finished my stamping, I set my panels aside to let the ink dry. I knew I wanted to add some heat embossing, and you can see the dashed swirly elements stamped on my test panel to the right. This is what I wanted to heat emboss. So I knew I needed to give these panels some time to let the ink dry to be able to have a nice and clean embossing there. This particular ink that I used is a fast drying ink, but because I double stamped my images, I added more moisture to the paper, so I needed to allow for the extra time for it to dry. While my panels were drying, and I did use a heat tool to speed up the drying time, I used coordinating dies for the two outline trees that I had stamped, and I cut out masks out of paper. I wanted to add color to those trees, but coloring takes a lot of time, and I didn't have enough time to do the proper coloring that I wanted, so I started looking for ways where I could still add color to my trees, but not spend a lot of time doing that. I decided I could die cut masks out of paper, place negatives over the stamped images, and simply and quickly blend whatever color of ink over them. So I die cut two trees in one piece of paper so that I could use that one piece as a mask for both of my trees. While my panels were drying, I also went ahead and did my sentiments. I wanted these cards to say more than just Merry Christmas, so I found the perfect sentiment that reads, "Thinking of you at Christmas," and this one comes from the Christmas Essentials stamp set. I stamped it in clear embossing ink under little red paper panels. I added white embossing powder and heat set them with my heat gun. My panels were finally dry, so I was able to do my garland stamping. I picked these dashed swirls to look like Christmas garlands on my trees. I originally wanted to add little ornaments hanging off the garlands, but I felt like having just that swirly garland was enough to add little extra something to my panels. So I stamped them in clear sticky ink. By the way, I prepped each panel before stamping with my anti-static powder tool. I added Simon's antique gold embossing powder, and I heat set it with my heat gun. I had 3 rows of trees, so I added 3 garlands, 1 to each row, and these, by the way, come from the Cute Snowflakes stamp set. Once my heat embossing was done, I was able to grab my die cut masks and blend ink over the outline trees. I used fog color for one of the trees, and I blended this color over all trees of this design. I used an ink blending foam from a different color, so I probably did not get the perfect true fog color here, but that didn't bother me. I wasn't going for a specific color, I just wanted to add some color, some light color to those trees. For the other tree design, I used Lake Shores and also Scuba. I just wanted to try different colors here, and those added a nice soft pop of blue. I adhered my panels onto A2 top folding card bases, and I also foam mounted my sentiments and the center of each panel. I did add some clear droplets here and there just to add a little something to each of those cards. You can also use a glitter pen or a glitter spray and add a generous amount to these panels. I'm all out of my glittery supplies, so I kept those cards simple. I love to stamp my own patterns using various images, and I find this to be very relaxing and fun. For these projects, I pulled stamps from 4 different sets. This is something I don't think I've ever done in the past, and I really love the way these turned out. I will be mailing them to join the Caring Hearts card drive, and I invite you to join us and mail some holiday cards as well. Be sure to go over to my blog to join the blog hop. Seven Says Stamp is sponsoring this hop with a giveaway, so be sure to check that out. If you'd like to see what supplies I used for these projects, I'm listing them below in my video description and on my blog. On the screen, you're seeing a few other holiday videos I have on my YouTube channel. Feel free to check them out for additional inspiration. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll see you next time. Bye!